right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. All right, guys, it's going to be Friday, right? Today I have Stephen Myers with me, and we are actually having him on. He couldn't be here today to be live for the webinar, so this is Thursday for us, and he and I are recording this. So, because he has a party that he has, his whole family's flocking into his house, and there's no way he could film anywhere. So he couldn't be live, but he wanted to be. So we're going to film today, and we'll play this for you guys, okay? There's us there on the screen. You can see Stephen and I say hello. So we're gonna record this a session here where we talk about everything he's doing, of course, and that way we'll have it playing for you. So I'll be able to try and answer any questions if you guys have them in the chat live. And if not, I'll try to get those questions to Stephen. And maybe what we'll do is if there's a lot of questions that you guys have, make sure you ask them, because if I can't answer them, I'll take those questions, and another time I'll get Stephen and I together and we'll have him answer those questions and pop that up. All right? And then if we do that, maybe we'll go live. And that way we'll answer the questions you guys asked on the show. And if you have any new questions, we can do that. Okay, because I am going live on YouTube these days, right? So we'll be able to do that unless they shadow ban me like Facebook. We'll figure that out. All right, so Steven's here with me. You can see him on the screen. And, I have the chat open over there. Let me fix that. I apologize, guys. I was talking to him and forgot to close the chat in the room there. So with the chat open, we have, hold on, let me get over here. And there we go. That's much better. I left the chat window open, so on the screen there was a little window next to us that was for chat, and we're not needing that window because it's just he and I, and we're not having a webinar being filmed currently. So I apologize for leaving that open. A little technical difficulty there that I didn't notice until I went live over here on the screen. Okay, so he couldn't be here today for this live, but we're still going to talk about what he's got going on. Now, I haven't actually talked to you in a bit to know if you have anything new that I don't know about. Let's start with that, and then we'll go on with everything else, okay?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on your show and this big event you're having. I'm truly honored. Sorry I couldn't be live, but the wife.
I came at you pretty quickly. I came at you with like less than a week's notice, bro. So don't feel bad.
Yeah, they with the grandkids and all the family, you can't. Sometimes life gets in the way, but I'm here and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of new stuff. Been on your show before.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the best, most exciting thing that I'm doing is we're scheduled in February to go to Egypt on a 13-day tour. So we're going to all the sites, and the new museum in Old Cairo, and of course the Giza Plateau and the Great Pyramid. Go inside the Great Pyramid and go to the Sphinx, of course, and cruise down the Nile on these large boats that they have for several days.
Who's putting that on? Are you working that, or are you just a tourist on that?
Oh, I'm a co-leader. I'm leading that with Barbara Jean Lindsay. Her website is barbarajeanlindsay.com. Or you can go to my website at thepump.org, and the link is prominently posted on there to find out the exact itinerary and that type of thing. So
right. Is there still slots open for people if they want to join you?
Yeah, it's not full yet. So
hurry up, guys. Go and take a look at one of those websites if you want to be there with Stephen and those guys. And I've heard that these tours that they do, that are those tours like you're talking about, you guys are putting together, going down the Nile, up the Nile, down the Nile, going to all these different sites, are really, really cool. I haven't gotten away to go and do it yet, but there's a lot of people that I know who have gone on some of these tours with you guys.
They are cool. I mean, they're a trip of a lifetime, a life-changing experience, all of that. There's no place in the world like Egypt and all of these sites. And so it's compared to the United States, it's really safe over there.
Right? No joke. Yeah, for real. And the food's fabulous.
The food.
Last week on the 5th anniversary of Watchers Talk, Ildi was on there. Ildi, I don't know how to say her last name. I always say it wrong. It's Ildi Buddha Eye. She was on, and she was showing some pictures of some really, really cool stuff, fossils and stuff from over there. And so that was kind of cool to see. But she used to help with some of the organizing some of the tours down there that you're talking about and organizing and helping organize. And the tours, man, they're just fabulous. So
They
one of
are.
these days, now, do you guys get to go to Luxor as well?
Oh yeah,
Oh
we're going
man,
to Luxor
I
and
need to get on one of those tours.
uh,
Maybe I can get
uh,
mom. How long is it? How long is that? Is it like a week, 3 days,
thir-
4 days?
13 days.
13 days.
Uh,
I wonder if I can move
yeah,
my sister, my mom in with
yeah,
my sister, or have her move in here for 2 weeks.
yeah. Right.
Come down
There
with
you
you.
go. Yeah, we move, we meet in Cairo and have a dinner and we have lectures and uh but like we're at the Great Pyramid and talked about issues of, historical issues, technical issues.
Right.
Barbara Jean Lindsay specializes in some spiritual issues, religion, gods, and that type of thing. So it'll be a really good mix of both spirituality and technology. So I'm excited to do that. So yeah.
Well, and I'm glad that people are starting to integrate that. One of the things that I've always said about like the paranormal groups, up until just recently, a couple of years now, they've always been just a bunch of tech nerds trying to film something, And I kept saying they need to have a medium, a psychic on there.
Yeah,
The psychic would be able to help them so much. There needs to be a spiritualist on this episode, on this quest. And they was refused for a long time. Now you can't find a paranormal group that doesn't have
right.
somebody that's a spiritualist on there. So I think that we need to interject more of that into a lot of stuff, because I think they tend to it's weird. They tend to try and stay away from it, but whenever they find any kind of place, it's always this is where their religious stuff happened. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's weird that they would say that when they don't believe in it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun. It'll be both her and I have been there before
Nice.
separate times,
Yeah, yeah.
but where this is the first time both of us are working together to lead a tour. So I'm pretty excited about it. She has her own talk show and whatever,
Right, right.
and so it's going to be fun, and we're
Are
looking
you guys going
forward
to
to
film
that.
any of it, or is this just you're going to be taking care of all the tour stuff while you're there?
Well, for her and I, it'll be a working tour, but
Right, right.
hopefully we can. The first priority is the guests that go with us.
Exactly, right.
But if I can do like a video for my YouTube channel or something, I will, and I
Right.
hope that I can with the background of the Great Pyramid
Right?
and talk about it or that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but
Try
I
to sneak
haven't
those
had.
in, man. People love that stuff. I do. So if you sneak that in, let me know, and I'll definitely watch it.
Oh yeah, yeah, we'll do that. Hopefully, we can
Or
make
at
a
least take some
production.
pictures. You're good at that. You usually have a few pictures of you with the sites behind you. Every time I go to your page or so, you have a ton from different times since you've been there.
Oh yeah,
So in fact, I
I
don't know
put
if
a
I
lot
put
of
it. I
that.
think I put some up. Let me see if I'm. I got to remember where I
Yeah,
put it here in the studio. That's
my
not it.
Facebook page, I do a lot of that. So I'm on Facebook.
Right.
If people are interested in following me or becoming a friend, they can do that as well.
Right.
And the links for everything is on thepump.org, and you can find out what I'm about, some of our activities, and
Right.
uh, about our research books and that type of thing.
Right, which is let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm scrolling on the screen now, just so you know, I'm showing your lost technologies and your books. The Great Pyramid and the different books and pictures of you. Like right now, there's one of you standing with the Sphinx behind you. So for those of you who have audio that you're not listening to this on the podcast, because I do a video cast and then I transfer it into a podcast and that goes out to the world as well. So some people are just hearing us and they don't get to see any of the visuals. So yeah, so I've got Stephen Meyer's stuff up on the screen right now, and for you to know as well, Stephen. So let's talk a little bit about that, about the pyramid pump, because I can never get enough of that out of the way. Right? Let's go down that rabbit hole for a minute, and then maybe we'll backtrack and talk about because I know you have some documentaries that you guys were doing, and the foundation. I want to talk about that too. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So first, let's go with the theory. Let's run down that. What does that mean when people hear you say the pyramid pump? What does that mean?
Well, I contend that the Great Pyramid was built as infrastructure and that it was built to be a working machine. And that machine actually did something. It provided prosperity for the people that built it. And it did that by being a water pump. a hydroelectric dam
Mhm.
provides prosperity by making electrons go through a wire. People say, well, the Great Pyramid has to be more than that. Well, it's one of the biggest proposed explanations with the biggest return on investment that's ever been proposed for the Great Pyramid. So I think the Great Pyramid was a water pump. And I think it was built using water locks and barges. My first book is titled Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid, and it is basically how the Great Pyramid was assembled. So with water locks and barges and that type of thing, we have a video series on our website that's free for people to view at thepump.org, and people can get an idea with some short videos that they can watch about how stones were moved and set in place. And then I wrote a specific book about how the Great Pyramid functioned, how it operated as a water pump with water moving through the passages and chambers. And that book is The Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine.
Right.
The Great Pyramid was built, but some people say, oh, it was built to put a dead guy in there, but it didn't work very well. Or they say, the Great Pyramid was built to point to stars, but because of the precession of the equinoxes, it doesn't point to those stars. And both of those are really small returns on investment.
Right.
But
right. Well, now think about this: that on the inside, there's no hieroglyphs, right?
No, there is no hieroglyphs.
Now, why would they do that if it was a king's burial? And everything they've ever built where someone was buried in it, there wasn't a space on the wall that didn't have graffiti.
Right. The Valley of the Tombs is a good example.
Right.
Pharaohs were buried in holes in the ground, if you will.
Right.
And they have it's writing all around of it.
Yep.
But your car engine, it doesn't have writing on the inside.
That's right.
It's a machine. It don't need writing in the cylinders.
Right.
Might be a few part numbers.
Right.
But yeah, don't need writing.
Right.
It's not important for a machine.
Well, and one of the other things that I've noticed is, well, first of all, let's talk about, most people don't realize that the outside of the pyramid is not currently the way the outside of the pyramid appeared when it was active, correct?
Yeah, when it was first built, almost all researchers and even Egyptologists say that it had a covering of very precisely cut limestone casing stones, they're called. So it was covered with these excellent quality stones that were cemented together watertight. Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, the ones that are still there are cemented together watertight.
And those are the ones that are up near the top that you can clearly see, right?
Well, the ones on the Great Pyramid are the bottom layer, and there's a few left on the bottom layer, and those have a bonding agent between them that is renowned for being stronger than the stones itself. So yes, and we think the purpose of that was to impound water in the construction process that's depicted in my first book and our video series.
See, so there wasn't a step pyramid. There was, then right now, it's a big, it almost like a bunch of steps, that you could walk up. So it wasn't that; it was completely smooth. So that if they were putting water coming up and having water coming out of it, the water could just run right down the side, and that creates speed, which would push the water in any direction you want it to go for miles, right?
We do. We think that the casing stones are gone now, but originally they had a small passage like a vent that connected to the upper ends of the king's chamber vents. And then water moved down and ultimately delivered to the point of use. Yeah. The Giza Plateau and the pyramids are much different now than they were when originally built.
Yeah. So, I heard that people stole all the stones off of it to build other things. They just basically just ripped them off of there, and other pharaohs since then, because they liked the way they looked or the way they were already carved. Now, also, people say, well, these aliens built it, and it was built, all at once, and it was just put. I know, and I'm sure you do, that if that were the case, why would they have very human attachments that were locking stones into place where they had carved out an area where then the area would join with another area from the other block, and then they would pour either lead or some sort of metal in there like a glue. Why would they need that if they were aliens and everything was going to fit perfectly, right?
Yeah, my question is, why would aliens come from Orion or somewhere all the way over here to stack rocks in a pile? How did that help them?
That's
Did they
exactly the
do it?
same thing I talk about with crop circles.
Yeah,
People say those are aliens and they're putting geometric shapes there so that when we're intelligent enough, well, if they have to do that, then they already know we're not.
you're right. Right.
Why
Yeah,
would I fly? Why would I drive or fly a million miles to a place where there's a bunch of monkeys and then draw some figures on the ground and go, one day you'll know what this means? But I'm going to put it into a crop that's going to die in a week. So you're not going to be able to see it
yeah,
again. And you can only see it from the air.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's odd. Crop circles are beyond the scope of my research, but
Right.
I know people use a lot of symbolism because they can just make up stuff with the
Right.
Great Pyramid, be it
Well,
symbolism.
sound waves. This is my theory about that, and I've been told by psychics for some reason that I'm very close to spot on. But I look at the planet and I see that the planet is like a giant generator. It's spinning, and there's a lot of electrons and stuff coming off of it in all kinds of directions. Okay, there is a force that's moving the planet, and the planet moves in a certain way. We talked about this slightly when we were off air about the water, how it ebbs and tides, and if
Hmm.
and everything happens in patterns, and it's all the same circular pattern. Well, I've seen and done the study where if you take sound and you pour a bunch of salt, which is very crystalline, and because that's all it is crystalline, it's crystals, and you change the frequency of the sound and you hit a certain frequency, all of that salt spontaneously moves from where it is and creates geometric patterns.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that
so if
happened.
if you think that we have the same energy, we have harmonics coming off the planet, everything, it vibrates at a tone. We know this. So if you have a certain tone that's vibrating, then a certain pattern will emerge. So if, say, the planet's certain tone that's moving around, now you have to understand the planet is not a closed circuit that's 100%, because of, if you know the as above so below and the math, then that means that stuff is going to come out of the sides of the planet, not just on the top and the bottom. Okay, so if that happens, what if it happens to happen in a field? Everything will spontaneously combust and move to the exact place that you want. They've shown that every single blade of that little grass or whatever it is that's there pops at the exact same knuckle
Huh.
on the grass, and then it all falls over the exact same shape. That to me suggests that there's something that has more to do with harmonics or electromagnetism than not. And the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to talk to you about the underneath the pyramid. You showed in your video that the planners of building the pyramid, the Egyptians, had waterways, and these waterways went into basic little canals that they made so that the water would swirl around, right?
Yes, that's in the subterranean chamber. Half the chamber appears to be unfinished with these mounds of solid bedrock,
Mm-hmm.
but we think that that was used to create a whirlpool in the subterranean chamber that's similar to the research of Victor Schauberger.
Mm-hmm.
And that whirlpool created a vortex that was part of the water pumping process. And we
And
talk
what
about
would be
that.
the reason for the vortex?
The vortex assisted in pumping water. So the subterranean chamber was created first, and that acted like a water pump. Some people compare it to a hydraulic ram water pump,
Mm-hmm.
but it's much more sophisticated. And that pumped water up to supply water for the water locks and allowed the Great Pyramid to be built with ease. So it's sort of like a beating heart that brought the Great Pyramid to life.
Right now, see, if they had that technology and they understood how to do that, right? I mean, come on, guys, think about this, people. What he just described is Victor Schauberger was now he didn't he when he figured this out. Now let's think about this. Our science on the planet, as good as we are, from the time the pyramids were built until when did he write his first paper on that? It was in the 1900s,
He
right?
did much of his research in the 20s and 30s.
Okay, so guys, we didn't figure this out until the 20s or 30s in the modern era.
Hmm.
Okay, and then when you look at what they did, it's obvious from what we know from what Schauberger said that the pyramids, the people who built the pyramids, understood that technology way back then, whenever they were
Yeah,
built,
they did.
2,000,
I
5,000,
believe.
10,000 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah, they were geniuses. That's why I say lost technologies of the Great Pyramid.
Right?
And I think that they were geniuses. And if you say aliens built the Great Pyramid, you are also saying ancient people weren't smart enough to do it.
Right.
So, but I think ancient people were geniuses
Well,
and
and
built.
I tend to agree with that. And here's something for you guys to chew on out there. Again, now we have Schauberger, but let's look at this. Now, let's look at our modern day medicine. Our modern day medicine, when the people become a doctor, they take the Hippocratic Oath. That comes from Hippocrates. And Hippocrates wrote a medical journal. We have since found the medical journals of Imhotep.
Hmm.
And the doctors today say, without a doubt, had we found Imhotep's stuff first, we would be taking the Imhotepan Oath, not the
Yeah,
Hippocratic
yeah,
Oath.
that's true. That's true.
His medicine, 5,000 years ago, is better than the medicine we have today, so they're implementing his medicine today. Okay? So our medicine, somewhere along the line, took a crap compared to the Egyptians, who, where would they be today if they were still on that same track all the way to here?
Right,
With our
right.
technology, they would be 10,000 years or 5,000 years or 3,000 years more advanced than we are now.
Oh, that's
So
true.
if they had medicine that was superior, and now we have the idea of physics that we didn't even figure out until the same time that we figured out the medicine, which both was already surpassed by them, why are we
Hmm.
still going to say that they couldn't have built those pyramids?
That's true. That's true. There's been a lot of ancient technologies from ancient times, not just in Egypt, but
No,
a
yeah,
lot of examples of medicine from South America,
yeah.
terrapanning, where they did brain surgery on people and they lived, and that
Right?
type of thing.
Well,
So,
see, we believe that because we have technology, we're the smartest people that have ever been on this planet.
yeah, we do.
And we're
Mhm.
wrong, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
That's true. So I think that there's some bits of knowledge and understanding that ancient people had that would probably benefit us in our modern but very troubled world.
Right.
And I think that there's technologies from the Great Pyramid that could help us, like generating electricity and
Mm-hmm.
a whole host of other things. So that's the purpose of our foundation, what's called the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation.
Yeah, talk a bit about that.
Well, we have a foundation. I at first I was just interested, 25 years ago in technology and ancient technology. I have a collection of antique gasoline engines. I'm a ham radio operator, and I like technology and that type of thing. So, I looked, kind of studied the Great Pyramid, and it's a 45-story skyscraper built in ancient times. Whatever you think the Great Pyramid's for, it's certainly a technological wonder.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I read books by Egyptologists. This is before the internet. You go down to the library, and
I was
they
just talking
talk
about
all.
that on my show the other night. For those of you who are too young to understand what Stephen just said, we didn't have the internet, so we had to go to this building that's called the library. Inside of
Yeah.
that library were hundreds and thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands, depending on how big it was, of books. That was
Mhm.
our internet. We went in there and we had to
Yeah.
learn what's called the Dewey Decimal System if you're in America.
Yeah.
And we had to go and find the place, find the book. We'd know what we wanted. We'd ask
In
the
the
librarian.
card
She would give us a
catalog, you have to
number.
go to the
Yeah.
card catalog.
We have to go to a
Yeah.
card catalog, find it, get the number, correspond with the number on the aisle, and go and find the book somewhere, either upstairs or downstairs, and then pull
Yeah.
this dusty tome off and go sit down and read it or check it out and take it home. That was our internet. Okay,
Yeah.
so go
Yeah.
ahead and
Books,
continue.
just so you know, books don't have clickable links.
Right.
A lot of
Books don't
people
have
don't know that.
clickable links. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
Google it and then you can buy it, but the book itself, you have to read it. So you have to get a hold of it, pick it up, and open it up and learn words.
Yeah. Hmm. My books are available on Kindle too. So, oh well. You
Well,
can't
see,
win.
my books are available on Kindle as well. So truthfully,
Yeah.
without buying it, they can hear someone speak it to them or read it on their little devices. That's funny, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some of that too.
So go ahead,
But anyway,
continue. So you went and you started reading books about. Went
yeah,
to the library.
yeah. I went to the library and read books that Egyptologists, they went to college and they have authority to
Right.
declare edicts. Well,
Right.
they talked about the knuckle draggers pulling the 70-ton stones up a ramp and everything. And I have a technical background and also studied research techniques. So and then they talked about the extreme precision done with stone tools and Doriite pounders.
Right.
Chisel, chisel, pounding rocks together to get precision stone cutting.
Right.
So I said, fine, that's great. All I got to do is see your demonstrations that justify or validate your hypothesis.
Right.
But I learned something about the science of Egyptology, and it's a lot of people don't know it. They do not engage in the scientific method in regards to moving big stones or cutting or doing precision stonework. They have never made a Great Pyramid casing stone like those of the Great Pyramid.
Right. To
It's
prove
never
that it
been
can be
done.
done the way they say.
Yeah, done the way they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say it in all their books, but it can't be done.
They've never
It,
reproduced one.
yeah, how do
Right.
they get away with that? And then they
Right.
talk about these big stones being moved up a dirt ramp without, any handling scars and everything. It's just bizarre how they get
Yeah.
away with that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, they can pull it up these ramps, but they show in movies that they put grease down. Well, what's that going to do for when they're going uphill?
yeah, when they're walking on the grease.
They're
Yeah,
walking on
yeah,
the
it's just
grease.
bizarre. But they have departments in colleges of Egyptology. But they used to have departments of phrenology in colleges. They used to teach that. So
Right.
sciences come and go. But yeah, Egyptology is the biggest hindrance to understanding ancient Egypt.
Right. Right.
And
Because if you say anything out loud, then what's his name? Hawass will tell you you're stupid for believing
oh
in
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Although he says
yeah,
that about he'll tell you that about the aliens too. If you believe the aliens, or you're just stupid. So but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
If you question
The
anything,
company line. That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
They don't. It's like, what if I came on your show and said I'm a cow jump over the moonologist,
right,
and you can read about it. There's mythology about it and legends, and you
yeah,
can read books and everything. You can look it up at the library. But someone would probably say, "Uh, why don't you show me a cow jumping over the moon?"
right,
But Egyptologists get a pass. I mean, they can get away. Oh, we have all this. This is how workers did it, but we can't do it.
yeah,
I mean, it's just. But I think that science is in crisis,
right,
and it will either have to fundamentally change, which it will not,
yeah,
because it has de-evolved into a mystery religion, because they just tell each other these stories, and then each generation believes the same stories.
right,
But
yeah.
they're on the
Flat
wrong
earthers do
side
the
of
same thing.
history.
They have
Yeah.
everything based on some captain of some ship in the 1700s who was setting out to
Yes.
prove the world was flat, by the way, and he
Mhm.
somehow sailed 70,000 miles without provisions, um, both ways, and
Mhm.
came back 140,000 miles he sailed and never once talked about having to pull over to make a sandwich.
Well, I think Egyptology is on the wrong side of history, and
Yeah,
people
agreed.
will consider it as
Yeah,
the same as phrenology, if you will.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So that's unfortunate, because they're the hindrance, like you said. And then, if you're trying to prove it, they don't want you going to do that, right? They give you a
mhm.
grief and a hard time and don't let you try to
Oh
do
yeah,
certain
no,
things.
absolutely, steadfastly, even though they're the richest science in the world, they absolutely will not provide demonstrations to say what they say. Their hypothesis is
Yeah.
not substantiated with the scientific method. But anyway, enough about them.
Right.
They
Right.
are they're a failed science.
Right.
Well, I read the alternative books, some about ancient, aliens. What the Great Pyramid was a weapon or a beacon or whatever. But I finally read this book that other books referred to, privately published, called Pharaoh's Pump by Edward Kunkel. Small pamphlet. In fact, I have a copy, I think, right here,
Do you?
if I may.
Yeah.
Here is his book. Pharaoh's Pump by Edward Kunkel. Privately published. You can't get a copy of it.
Wow.
It's out of print. It's unavailable. But
Unavailable.
you can interlibrary loan it. There's several editions, and he did the best he could. But he also wrote One Bright Day. It's his autobiography.
Right.
There's some pictures in the back of
Nice.
different. But anyway, and what he did is he talked about the Great Pyramid as a technological structure, which it is. You know, he talked about how stones were moved from A to B.
Right.
He didn't talk about what type of hat the pharaoh wore.
Right.
He didn't talk about what gods they worshipped.
Right.
None of that. He didn't
Right.
talk about what language they spoke. He didn't talk about what wars they were at, or what they ate, or how they embalmed people. Never talked about that. He talked about how the Great Pyramid was assembled. And I mean, it was astounding, certainly. First published in 1962. Many people don't even know about it.
Right.
Think they're experts. But certainly, we ultimately founded a nonprofit foundation dedicated to furthering his work. Named it after his book, and the website is thepump.org, and you can see what we're doing. We're doing research, some a whole bunch of stuff. Have a library with a lot of privately published and manuscripts, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and doing this cruise. That's just another thing that we're doing. So we're having a lot of fun. You can go to the website and see our mission statement, goals, activities, that type of thing.
Nice. So let's look at the structure on the inside. Why was the inside of the structure of the pyramid designed the way it was? How does that function?
Okay, they didn't. This is what an Egyptologist will tell you. They didn't really know what they were doing. So they started building it, and it doesn't look like a tomb. So they changed the plan several times because we just made up that explanation, because it doesn't look like a tomb, because the pharaoh, he's only got one body and there's several rooms, but somebody stole all the treasures in ancient times before we could steal it.
Right, and the body.
And the body, yeah.
Yes, there's not
but
even a body.
Because there's no evidence for any of that, that's what proves it. That's the Egyptology explanation. But here's my explanation. There are several passages and chambers in the Great Pyramid, and those passages and chambers had a function. Nothing symbolic about them, not a thing symbolic. And they functioned to pump water. Water entered the upper end of the descending passage, and it went down about 300 feet to the subterranean chamber and moved in a whirlpool or vortex. Many researchers think there's a profound link between water and the Great Pyramid, including Christopher Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
And then water from the subterranean chamber went up to the lower end of the Grand Gallery through the grotto. And my book talks about it in much greater detail, all of this, than I am now. So then water in the lower end of the Grand Gallery is there. We think that electrolysis occurred in the Grand Gallery, and other researchers do too, including Christopher Dunn, and which separated hydrogen and oxygen from water. Those two gases, when combined, are volatile and ignite. We think that they ignited those gases in the Grand Gallery, which ultimately created a vacuum that drew water up the Grand Gallery. It was like a 300-ton water piston. And then they were able to release the vacuum, which moved that water piston down, and with valves that aren't there anymore, directed water to the Queen's chamber and compressed water in that chamber. Half of the chamber was air, half water. That compressed air pushed water from the Queen's chamber up into the King's chamber, and ultimately water moved out the King's chamber vents and then down through some other vents in the casing stones that are gone,
Right.
and to the point of view. So it's a complicated process. It's an unusual um, water pump, to say the least. It's like trying to describe how a V8 engine works. But we
Right.
have this is my first video about how the Great Pyramid was assembled. And I
Nice.
don't have a copy of my second documentary, but it's titled The Great Pyramid Water Pump, available on Amazon. Very detailed animations on how the Great Pyramid pumped water. And of
Yeah,
course,
you guys
this
should
book,
check that out. I've seen it, and it's
yeah,
fabulous. It's phenomenal. And in fact, that's the part where it went down that road with the spiraling of the water, which got me onto Scharberger, and had me go down that rabbit hole. And that's when
mm-hmm,
I was thought, the light bulb went on. All of a sudden
mm-hmm,
it dawned on me that it's exactly that. I mean, that's just crazy, right? And that this would function. And you guys have to understand, if you have any old buildings that are here in the United States, if you look at the top of the old buildings, they have water displacement that comes off, and we do too. On all buildings these days, we call them downspouts, and the water that comes off from the top of the buildings to run off would either come out through like one of the heads of a gargoyle on some of these older
mm-hmm,
buildings, and it would
mm-hmm.
shoot out, but then that would land on people, so they started going through downspouts, and so we have all these catch water basins on the side of your house, and then the water gets caught there in that trough, and it goes down to the corners, and it goes down, and we put it where we want to put it. Well, why
Right,
wouldn't they do the exact same thing with the pyramid? We have simple technology that does that now. So if they have the water being drawn up in a way that you just heard Stephen describe, and the truth is, if you know anything about physics, exactly what he's saying happens, literally drives that piston and pumps that's the way, like he said, if you're describing how the combustion engine works, it's the same way. We take those gases and we compress those gases together and they explode. And that creates a vacuum, and it causes your cylinders to pop up and down in your car. And then the
right,
energy from that goes to your spark plug, which is then replaced into your battery, which keeps the motor running. Goes through your generator and keeps the motor running. So the water in this instance would continue to flow because the machine would be turned on, and it didn't need any energy at all to stay on, did it? The water created its own vacuum and would continue until they turned it off, correct?
I think that's correct. A lot of people don't like the 0 point energy idea,
Yeah.
but hydroelectric dams, you get more energy out of them than you put into them.
Right,
Trust me.
which proves the 0 point energy theory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You could say a hydroelectric dam is a solar machine. I mean, however you want to
Right.
put it,
Right.
But another way to put it is it's a very efficient use of the hydrogen and oxygen. It's an engine designed specifically to use that fuel, if you can say that. Some
Hmm.
people don't like to say that.
Well,
They
anything that
use,
makes something go is fuel. Doesn't matter what you want to call it, guys.
that's what I think.
Yeah.
A lot of
If
people
it's light
disagree
energy,
with
it's
that.
fuel. If it's air, it's fuel. Whatever it is. If it's fire, it's still fuel, right?
Right. I think so, yeah. But they use hydrogen in gasoline internal combustion engines, and
Right.
it's not a good fit. It's not as good as or elegant as the
Yeah.
Great Pyramid water pump.
Right.
So and then they use the water for everything.
Yeah.
They increase the land that could be irrigated year round. They probably used it for industrial purposes to run machinery. Our industrial revolution started with water power,
Right.
and they use the water to create compressed air, which has a lot of uses.
Right. We got the
In
steam engine out of it. Right.
yeah, yeah, I wouldn't say, but a compressed air engine, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, with compressed air, you can do refrigeration. You go through the vortex tube.
Yep.
One end is real hot, and the other end is quite cold.
Yep.
So they could use that the coldness for scientific experiments, and I mean, just the list goes on. Create static electricity, high voltage static electricity for a whole host of purposes,
Yep.
and for probably for purposes, medical purposes, and other purposes we don't know.
Yeah.
I power my laptop. I have a setup where I power my laptop with water power, so you can do a whole
Nice.
bunch of stuff.
Do you really? That's cool.
It is cool. Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Right here
cool.
at the
But you know, you
facility.
can do that with everything. And people don't realize that, you guys, with the technology, we figured that out as a human race with like what you were saying with when they had the old water wheels on the rivers, right?
Yes.
The paddle boat was another example of that. But the water wheel would be sitting there. The water would turn this wheel, which generated power because it cranked, and then that turned the stuff on the inside that would generate power. And you
Yes.
know, and either that or they would use it for their mills to break up the grain. It was still the water was doing it. To this day, in my prepping book, I talk about that. Actually, it's in the second book, which I haven't published yet. But if you can live anywhere near a stream, you just go and you put one of those. You can take a little wheel from a pump that is no good, or you don't have electricity for it, for like a fish tank. And if you can submerge that in the water and have it to where it turns, like half of it, so the water turns it, that generates power because it's turning the wheel that would put the electrons through the filaments in
Hmm.
in the copper and then generate electricity. And that's with just the nature pushing water. Now this is the same theory. Nature's pushing the water into and under the pump, under the pyramid. It creates a swirling effect in there. And if you read anything from Schauberger, you see that generates a certain energy in the water in and of itself.
Hmm.
Charges the water with energy and makes the water like almost like the fountain of youth. So you're doing that, and then now you're pulling that water up into and dispersing it over the edge, and now running it down to what? Irrigation, wherever you want it. Picks up speed as it goes downhill. Now you can send that water further and further out, right?
That's right. A lot of people say, well, the Nile is right there, so they didn't need a water pump.
What are they going to have, a bucket brigade?
Well, they have actually a number of from ancient times water wheels in Egypt and that type of thing.
Right.
But in modern times, the largest structure in the valley of the Nile is the High Aswan Dam,
Mm-hmm.
and the electricity from that dam is used to pump water.
Right.
So they pump it's water all along the valley of the Nile, and the largest water pump in the world, the Mubarak pumping station, you can look that up, is in Egypt. So in ancient times, they needed water pumps in the valley of the Nile, and in modern times, they needed water pumps in the valley of the Nile. Certainly, they operate differently, but
Right.
there is still a need to pump water in Egypt.
Right. Why wouldn't there? People think the other thing that people don't understand is that the Nile, where it is today, is not historically where the Nile always may have been. Water moves in mysterious ways, and sometimes it changes direction and starts going in a different direction, and it moves away from where you are. So who's to say? We don't know. I mean, well, we do know. Stephen and I know that the Nile came up closer to the Big Pyramid than it does today.
It
Okay, there
did,
was
yeah.
yeah,
Through the
right,
millennia, the Nile River has changed its course,
yeah.
but still, it's the lifeblood of the civilization.
Oh,
And
absolutely. But my point here is people say, why would you need a pump when the water's right there? Well, there wasn't always, and not is always right there. Sometimes it's a
yeah,
mile away. Sometimes it's right up on the doorstep. It changes. I've seen documentaries where they found whole cities that
hmm,
have been abandoned, long ago because somewhere up the Nile or down the Nile, everybody thinks that going to away from and up to the part where the fork is that is up, that's down, guys.
yeah,
Right? Up is the
downstream.
other way. So when you go down further down the Nile, so go the other way up the Nile, and as the water was coming down, it had changed directions, and there was a port city that they found that was basically underwater because the whole thing collapsed because it was abandoned for so long, and the Nile
Yeah,
changed directions on it.
that's true. It
Yeah.
it has, and it has changed course,
Mm-hmm.
and in
That's just
millennia.
normal,
So
right? It just happens in nature, right?
it does.
Yeah.
It does happen. That's for sure. But the river, now look, I tell people this: the water in the river is worthless for irrigation
Right.
because it's sitting in the river. What you need is water on the land.
Right.
I live in a rural area in southwestern Oregon. Every farm here has a water pump connected to the river.
Right.
And the reason why is even though the water is right there, they still need the water from the river up onto the land. So they again, ancient times they had a water pump.
Right.
Modern times they have a water pump in Egypt.
Yeah, it's just something that you need. It's something that you have to have, because otherwise you have to go upstream, change the direction of the river, and cut another smaller irrigation river to
Yeah,
your
canal.
fields, to a canal to your fields, and then that takes water away from the guy downstream. And now
It
he's
does.
cutting another one that's longer to try and get the water. And now the river is, see, so every time you go further downstream, that poor guy's got to go farther because there's less water in the river and it's changing directions because everybody else is taking water up above. It's much easier if you don't do that and siphon the water off that way by changing the direction. If you create a pump on there, you're now not diverting the actual water. You're just sucking out what you do need. And all that water that would be running into that canal, which is wasted to get to your fields, taking a lot longer, doesn't happen. Am I right? So it's more efficient.
You are right.
Yeah.
That's very well said. I wish everyone understood it as well as you do. So I appreciate that. Yeah,
That's just one of the things I would, like I told you before, remember we were off air, and I research like everything, just like you do. I think it's our generation, maybe, I don't know, or we're just
our
nerds,
generation,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, because we had to do that. We didn't have, if we wanted knowledge, we had to go get it. It wasn't provided for us like it is today, with your cell phone. People walk around with the entire knowledge of the universe in their hands, and they don't even look anything up. In fact, they're so lazy, they go, "You got a link for that?" I'm like, "Google it. Use your fingers, bro.
Yeah.
Type those words in. You know how to spell?"
Yeah, we're kind of, and a lot of people that are the most vocal seem to be that they're post-book researchers. So that's bizarre,
Well,
or they
that's
say,
just like with doing a show. The attention span of America isn't. There's not a lot of people that want to sit for 2, 3, 4 hours for a show. There are some that will, and those are the people like you and I who actually look for knowledge. When I was in my philosophy class, one of the first things that the teacher talked about in Philosophy 101 is that philosophy is the love of knowledge, or the knowledge of love, right? So that's the way I kind of approach everything, with that kind of mindset, that I love knowledge. I want to learn everything. Anyway, continue.
Well, yeah, I've encountered people that say, "Well, tell me what's in your book," and I say, I got this technique to figure out what's in a book, and they go, "What is it?" I say, "Read a book."
Read.
And then they're like offended, especially the Facebook educated. What?
The millennials,
read
right?
a book?
Read a book. Print is dead, man. Do you have a video for that?
Yeah. They put it right on a comment. I would be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then they say, "Well, your book might have something in there I disagree with, so I won't read it." Good. Please don't read it. It's
it's become so cut and dry, hasn't it?
Oh, it
Where
has.
people are just like, I actually posted something, and I don't even remember what it was now. It's that trivial. It really was. It was that trivial. And 2 people on my personal page said, "I don't agree with this. If you don't take this down, I'm out of here." I was like, "Who are you? Are we friends?" I didn't even know who you are. I'm like, "You can leave anytime you want." They do that on my channels too, my Facebook and YouTube. I'm like, "Turn the channel."
Yeah. Keep scrolling.
Keep scrolling. Go somewhere else.
That way
Don't troll me.
you won't get hurt. Just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
I
I challenge you. Your brain's not going to fall off if you use it too much. Really, it won't.
Yeah, it's just a strange world that people don't want to. There's books out there, and what they are, obviously Egyptology and a few others. But dude, I read them. I read them books. I like to read books about things that I disagree with. It's called education.
Yeah.
But other people don't have that opinion.
Right. And that's funny that you say that, because I was just talking to my brother about that, and it's got to be a generational thing, because I will pay attention to someone I don't agree with because I want to know what they're thinking. Right.
Right.
I want to know. That's why, like, Fox is the news station in the 8, 9, and 10 o'clock slot beats everybody all the time. You know why? Because even the progressive Democrats can't help themselves. They got to turn it on and see what these guys are talking about, because they need something to bitch about tomorrow, right? So that's why the time slot's so big, because everyone's watching. governor here of California, Gavin Newsom, was a progressive Democrat. He actually looked at the camera one day and said, "Yeah, I too watched Tucker Carlson." I laughed. I was like, "You have to, right?" So you got to know what the people of the opposition are saying. So I watch CNN. I watch all news agencies, and then you know what I do? I make up my own mind.
Wow.
Isn't it
That's
crazy?
so novel.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't discredit some. I'm not going to watch them because I don't agree with what they say. What? That's the whole purpose of America, is so that we
Yeah.
can all disagree with each other. That's the only way anything gets done.
Yeah. My dad fought in World War II. He said, and it's a famous quote, that he'd fight to the death to to keep you from to have the right to say something he disagrees with.
Yep.
And that's why he fought World War II, as he said. So yeah, but it's not that way now. But
Isn't that crazy?
and then people had asked me, well, tell me what's in your book. It's like, my book's filled with awesome goodness.
Yeah.
I would never ask an author what's in their book.
Yeah. Tell me
No.
what's in your book, man. I don't have to read it that way.
Yeah. Why don't, read the book.
Read the
But
book.
but
man.
that's, again,
Yeah.
way offensive
Get
nowadays.
it on audio, and that way you don't have to read it if if you've forgotten how to read or you don't know how to read. Then we still got it on audio.
Yeah.
Right? But
And then
that's
they
just
say,
crazy. That's just
I
crazy.
thought
And I
your
tell
book,
people all
if
the
I
time,
read
learn to
it-
read. That's the key. Knowledge is the key to the universe, right?
It
History
is.
the key to knowledge, and knowledge is the key to the universe. That's why nowadays they're trying to eradicate the history from America, because if they can take your history away from you, you have no identity.
Yeah, just the identity they tell you. That's correct.
Yep.
That's why I always liked history. Even in high school, history was always ruined by the history teacher.
Right.
But it was quite interesting. History is current events that happened a long time ago.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I've been to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential
I've
Library.
never been. Oh, I've never been there. I would love to go there.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and they talk about a lot of things that were going on as
At the
current
time.
events. Quite
Yeah.
interesting. So
That's
but
the
yeah,
only way that we can figure out who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. Is you're going to repeat history if you don't know about it. If
right.
you don't know about it, you're going to make the same mistakes. If you know about it, then that's how things are solved. Everything that's going on right now in the news is destroying. If they destroy our history, then we're not going to have any, and therefore we're going to be doomed to make the same mistakes. Now, why am I going down this road? Not because it's current events and I'm trying to go down current event roads. I'm going down this road because what Stephen's doing is trying to figure out the history of Egypt, because there's a history there, and that tells him what they were doing then, like current events, like we just talked about with Abraham Lincoln. And if he
Right.
can figure out what they were doing there, then that helps us now not to make the mistakes they made then. Do you
True.
see how that works, guys? Those of you who don't
Yeah.
think like Stephen and I, do you see how
Yeah,
I
you
tied
worked
that in
all the
for
way
you?
around.
Yeah, I tied that in for you.
Yeah.
And
But-
see, the Egyptians took away the history, the true history of everything that's going on there, and they will not tell you the true history, and they don't want to know the true history. They took it all
Yeah.
away, and they want it to be the narrative
Yeah.
that they want to teach you now. And that's exactly what Stephen said a second ago when I said about tearing down all the stuff now. So they made those mistakes,
Yeah.
and we didn't
Egyptology.
learn from them, and we're starting to make those same mistakes today. We need to see that and not do that. History is important to have because it makes you talk about that subject.
Right. History is also a source of technology that can help us.
Right.
We have these stainless steel scalpels that they use in surgery that are awesome.
Right.
Well, now they're using flint
Yeah.
because the flint, like flint arrows,
Yeah.
are sharper than scalpels.
Yep.
When you nap a blade with flint, it goes down to one molecule.
Yeah, that's
So
insane.
is arrowheads ancient technology or is it modern technology?
Right.
And also aspirin. Aspirin originally came from the leaves in South America. The
Right.
witch doctors, when they encountered someone with a headache, they'd say, chew these leaves and call me in the morning.
Yep.
Now we have these fancy doctors that give you synthesized aspirin and say, take 2 pills and call me in the morning.
Right.
C-sections, birth control, and a whole bunch of other technologies were available in ancient times. So we think that the Great Pyramid is a novel, highly technical and efficient water pumping device that we're trying to redevelop that ancient technology to give us an alternative from the other energy systems we use, like nuclear or oil and all that, which are
Which are
very
far more
destructive.
dangerous, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So and expensive.
and
So
expensive, right?
so that's what we're doing. We're a humanitarian organization that's trying to use this technology to help our modern world. And hopefully we can develop it where people in third world countries can use the materials they have, like barrels and that type of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
in a cottage industry, develop this and spread it around. Africa is a good um, place that this technology could be used in modern times. So it's that's what we're doing, and they can find out on our website, what we're up to, and even contact me or our foundation if they have questions or want to
Right.
become involved.
Well, and you have a couple of documentaries they can watch as well, right?
We do.
Yeah.
They're available on Amazon on DVD. This one is the building the Great Pyramid with water locks and barges. So it talks about how the stones were moved from A to B. The
Right. I want to go
Orion
down that
Correlation.
avenue too at some point. So we'll discuss that so they can get an idea. You guys could watch that
Yeah.
video and learn it. That has visuals for you, computer generated stuff. It's really cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And for some of the pictures that I've been putting up from the slideshow also have some of his stuff that shows a little bit of the stuff from that documentary, just like one or two snapshots of some of the
Oh great.
locks
Oh,
and
thank
stuff
you.
that are on there.
Thank
Yeah,
you for that.
I
Yeah.
did some a lot of stuff that I put together here for you on your
That-
photos. So
oh,
like now I have one on there on the screen that's showing the water, air, pressure, vacuum, and everything, and it's showing the Great Pyramid pump, and it has the geometric shape behind the mathematical,
oh yeah. Yeah. I'm familiar with that one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. These
Yeah.
are all from your page and site. In fact, right now you're laying in the king's chamber in the sarcophagus.
Oh yeah, everybody's done that all the way from Napoleon on up to tourists every day of the year. So
Right, I
we're
would
gonna
if
be.
I go in there. I'd be hopping in. I know you're not
Oh
supposed to, but
yeah,
I would be hopping in there if I could do it and not get caught.
oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
hop in there
take a
and
shot, quick, take a selfie.
give the guard $1 and he'll take your picture. So it's a wonderful world. Yeah, and our crews we're actually are going to do that for a photo op.
Oh,
So
nice, nice.
it's fun. Yeah, yeah.
So
There's
what is
no
it? How much does it cost? Do you know what the cost is for the average person to hop onto
I,
that
I
cruise?
don't I don't exactly, but it's
Okay.
cheaper than a cruise.
Yeah, I know that they're like from three to $7,000 or something
Yeah, three.
usually.
Depends. Yeah, 3 to 5. But I mean, there's
Yeah.
people. We'll have people on the ground that we work with, and it's all transportation, meals, and everything
Yeah,
is
yeah,
all
everything's
figured out.
included in it usually when you guys put these together. So there's
Yeah,
not much that they
yeah.
have to pay for while they're there, unless you want trinkets, stuff you
Oh,
want to take
gotta have
home.
them trinkets and T-shirts and
Yeah, yeah,
all that stuff.
yeah.
So, and then we'll go through old Cairo.
I want to get one of those that says, that my dad went to the pyramids and this is all I got. His T-shirt. I want to get one of
yeah,
those. For
yeah,
that.
yeah, that type of thing. If you want it, they'll have it for
I'll
you.
bet you're
And
right. Right. I bet they do. That's what's funny about that.
but just to soak in the ambiance of all of those historic and sacred sites is it's going to be a trip of a lifetime. But it's around there between like around 5,000 or whatever, and
Right.
it's one of those things. I tell people travel is always expensive and always worth it.
Right. That's just the way it is. Sorry, I had to put my glasses on. Even looking at the camera, this eye doesn't see as well as this eye does. So if I don't put my glasses on after a while, I start getting a headache because this eye's not focused properly. So I had to
Okay,
put my glasses.
I'll put mine on
So we'll
for
both look like nerds, right? Here we go. They're
yeah,
almost the same shape too, right?
yeah, black glasses matter.
Black glasses matter. That's right. Mine are not
There,
black though.
there we go. I got my cheaters on.
Yeah, I tend to do that when I'm filming because if I look over here on the monitor, then I can see with these are my distance glasses. I don't have bifocals because I didn't want to pay the money for it. So I have cheaters as well, right? Here's my cheaters.
These,
So
yeah, these are the best ones the dollar store had.
right. That's what these are a little bit more expensive, but most of the time I get them from the dollar store as well. These are prescription I got from the doctor, but if I wanted to have, like I said, a bifocal put in, it would have cost me money. These didn't cost me anything because my medical paid for the entire thing.
Oh,
But
good.
you had another $150 or $200 for the bifocal, and I probably would have had to pay something out, like $100. So I'm like, why would I do that when I can go to the dollar store and
Right
get one
on.
for $1.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
Why would I pay 150 when I can pay $1.50? So,
There you
but for
go.
distance though, I wear these guys, and watching TV and driving and walking because
Well,
this
I think
eye doesn't
I
see
think
as
we
well.
match.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the same haircut too. I like
Oh, and
that.
mine I shaved off. Otherwise, I did have the same haircut exactly, but I decided to shave it, so I shaved my head the other day. And
I
some
got
people
some
don't like
a
it.
little bit of hair back here and in the
Yeah.
underarms, so I'm
Oh, of
pretty good.
course. I don't have much there. You're on the under, but I'm hairy everywhere else though. I'm a lot. I
Oh,
got a lot of hair.
good.
Not like a
Yeah.
woolly mammoth, but I'm pretty hairy. So, all right. So let's go down the avenue of the lock system. Let's explain to everybody what a lock system is, how that
Okay.
works, because we've done this before. In the modern age, we have locks here, a couple locks around the world that do move large, huge ships. And it doesn't take
Yes.
much, right? So explain the lock system, and then we'll get into how they could do that around the pyramids, and what we know about the what we found, what you guys have found, not me, you guys found, and people researching that kind of shows that they had the stuff. Because everyone always says, well, where's the tools? If we built the pyramids and they built the pyramids, how come there's no tools? We found the tools.
And
Steven
yeah.
knows about it. All right, so tell them about the lock
Yeah.
system first, how
Yeah.
that works, and then
First
and
of all,
apply
that
that today.
argument
Show
of
them in reality
yeah.
how it works, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay. First of all, that argument of where are the tools is like a false flag or whatever. It's
Yeah.
a red herring.
Yep.
You know, they made Fabergé eggs. We have the Fabergé eggs.
Yep.
Well, where's the tools that made them?
Right.
We can't find the tools.
Right.
Well, they existed. You know,
Yeah.
they were precision lathes and some other things. But
Yeah.
you know, so it doesn't matter where the tools are. If you have the tool marks, then you know
Right.
there were tools. But
Yeah,
anyway,
you have the finished product. How did it get there?
yeah.
Well, there's tools. Obviously, we just don't have them now. But someone built this, and it wasn't
Yeah.
aliens. Yeah.
Right on. So that's the issue. But anyway, water locks are mankind's 21st century system of choice to move our heaviest objects that we move. And the Panama Canal was just recently expanded. They didn't use a magic wand, and they didn't use crystals or
There
anything
wasn't a
like
band
that.
playing with
or-
sound.
yeah, they didn't rely on sound and
Right.
everything because those engineers had to actually do something.
Mm-hmm.
So they made larger water locks to fit our largest ships. And basically, a water lock is a short canal with doors on each end. That one end is connected to a canal that's higher than the other end. So a ship or a barge, like in the Erie Canal, would go in, and then they would shut the doors on both sides, and it would raise up because they would add water to the water lock. The water's locked in there, and then they would open the doors on the other side, and then it would lift, believe it or not, a ship or boat or barge. And the Erie Canal, which was built in the 1830s, was 4.5 feet deep, but the barges had a capacity of 70 tons, which is the size of the largest payloads in the Great Pyramid. So in the 1830s, people could move 70-ton payloads. In 2020, Egyptologists can't move 70-ton payloads.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting.
Right.
They've never moved a payload. But anyway, so what they did with the Great Pyramid was they had the Nile River right there, and a catch basin by the Nile, and
Right.
water locks from the Nile River went all the way up to the building site. And they also supplied water to the building site. Christopher Dunn and others contend that the original builders had water at this facility. And the first stones that they set in place were the first layer of casing stones. We talked about those. Some of those still exist at the Great Pyramid. So it was like a square wall around on the construction site. And those stones were cemented together watertight. So they fill that pond with the what I call the construction pump in the subterranean chamber. And that pond is full, and they have the flight of water locks from the Nile all the way up that connects to that pond. So the stones are already on barges. Everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
Egyptologists and everybody. The biggest stones were 400 miles away on up the river, upstream,
Mm-hmm.
down the river, but upstream, uh, uh, up there, the 400 miles. So they went all the way, and then also many of the quarries are across the river. So
Right.
everyone agrees they had stones on barges. Well, I think the builders were geniuses, and they went from the Nile River on barges all the way up to that big pond
Right.
on the construction site, and then they were able to move the stones off of the barges and then just down into the pond to their
Right.
final resting place. When that pond was filled up, the first level of the Great Pyramid was completed. So then they set in the next layer of casing stone cemented together and add an additional water lock to that higher layer, and stones on barges in a production line manner came from the Nile River all the way up and into that second layer, and onto that pond that they kept full with the construction pump. And they took the stones off of the barges and then set them right into the pond, no problems whatsoever.
Right.
And systematically built the Great Pyramid level by level, including the casing stones, and as it went all the way up to the capstone.
And why not?
Why not?
Right. Why not? I mean, it's completely plausible, and we know that you guys have seen and they have found some of these barges, right?
Oh, the barges that were used to build the Great Pyramid, there's no physical evidence for that, but there's a lot of physical evidence for water associated with the Giza Plateau. Christopher Dunn, again, his groundbreaking work with water erosion.
Right. Right.
Excuse me, I misspoke.
Yeah.
Dr. Robert Schoch talks about
Shock.
water erosion on the Sphinx
Yes.
and Sphinx enclosure. Apologize
Yeah. Yeah.
to
That's
both
right.
Robert Schoch and Christopher Dunn for that. But yes, Robert Schoch, who I met, he's a great guy.
Right.
Anyway, and then Herodotus described the Great Pyramid like a island surrounded by water. So we think that there was a enclosure wall around the Great Pyramid that existed up until the 18th century, and that was part of the construction process with this pond, this enclosure pond, and Flanders Petrie found Nile earth or sediment inside the passages and chambers of the Great Pyramid, and there was salts on the Queen's chamber, which we think was the result of the process of electrolysis in that area. So there's a lot of issues with water and the Great Pyramid.
And then yeah, and
So
the only way they could get there is obviously because the water was there. The
yes,
sediment, the salt. That means the water from the Nile had to have been in that particular place inside the
yeah,
pyramid.
that's what we think.
Yeah.
So those salts certainly existed, but how they were, why they're there is under scholarly debate. But there has to be a reason, and we think it's associated with the process of moving water through those chambers.
Right. And it wouldn't be the problem is that these days it wouldn't be plausible to even try and get it to where you like could repair it to turn it back on just to prove it. You'd have to build one separately, right?
Yeah, yeah. The value of the Great Pyramid now is historical, so you don't want to alter it
Right.
as it, to make it like it originally was. I mean,
Right.
that's not
But what about
that's
trying
not
to create one on a smaller scale?
yeah, creating one on a smaller scale. But the Great Pyramid ceased to function when the King's Chamber ceiling stones cracked, and then that chamber wasn't airtight,
And
and
that was
so
it. It
there
was
was
done.
a malfunction and it broke.
It
Yeah,
was like blowing a
so
head gasket.
like very much like that in a
Yeah.
way, and they blew that, and it was done. It didn't work anymore. And yeah, there's a lot of evidence for water inside the Great Pyramid and other types of evidence that are highlighted in my documentaries and books. So it's quite a machine, and it's a machine that was a result of a huge investment, but it was a even bigger return on investment. So That's if
Well, when you have a population that's growing, you have to have more food to feed the population. So
yeah,
as you expand, you have to figure out new ways, innovate new ways to create more food for your population. And then you need, okay, we need food. How do we do that? Well, we need water. How do we do that? What do we do? Somebody came up with an idea, right? At least
right.
that's what it looks
Somebody
like.
came up to an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They say
then
necessity is the mother of invention.
right.
Yeah.
But that type of thing went on in the 1930s. The population is growing. We got to have flood control.
Right.
We need electricity. So they built the Hoover Dam.
Yep.
And the Hoover Dam, is just a phenomenal. That's why there's a Las Vegas. They have the
Yep.
water and that is pumped by the dam,
Yep.
and also the electricity. So it's a
Yep.
huge return on
I
investment.
have
So
up here on my desk. There's the shelves, in the back. I actually have "I ate a damn dog" from the Hoover Dam. If you go there, they sell hot dogs, and they get you stickers or hats or shirts that
yes,
said I ate a damn dog." And
yeah.
I went there and I ate a damn dog.
Yeah, that's a great place.
Took a tour of that dam, as a
Yeah,
matter of fact.
I did too,
Yep.
and it's marvelous. You go down the elevator; it's like an industrial cathedral, if you
Yeah,
will,
it's crazy.
and tremendous Art Deco, and it's
Yep.
just a work of art. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing,
Yeah,
and
it was something. It was impromptu. My father and I were riding motorcycles, and I think we were in Vegas, and we decided to go and take a look. We were just there, and hey, let's go to the Hoover Dam, right? Okay,
yeah,
so we drove out to the Hoover Dam and went and stood in the middle. Where I'm in Arizona. I'm in
mhm. New Mexico.
yeah. No, it was Arizona and Nevada, right? Yeah.
And that's all right.
Yeah, I'm in
Arizona,
Arizona. I'm
Nevada.
in Nevada. I'm in Arizona. I'm in Nevada. Took pictures. That was fun. And then took a tour and had a hot dog and then smiled and laughed and said, "Okay, let's go back to Vegas and do some more gambling."
Yeah. Yeah, I went to the largest structure in North America, which is the Grand Coulee Dam in central Washington. And
Wow,
it's just incomprehensible. About 13 times bigger than the Great Pyramid in volume.
that's
And
crazy.
I went to it several times before 9/11. And
Right?
you could go all the way down. They would show you the big shafts turning, and you could go
Wow.
all through it and everything. Now it's a very limited tour of like 20 people. You got to go through a metal detector. There's a guy in the
Oh yeah, they're
front.
afraid you're gonna go in there and try and blow it up or do something stupid
Yeah,
these days. Yeah.
a tour guide in the front and a tour guide in the back, both with their hand on their gun.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's so
Scary.
valuable.
Yeah.
It's so valuable. It creates enough electricity for 6 cities the size of Seattle, and it irrigates 1.5 million acres continually. So
Wow.
it's quite an important thing. So yeah, infrastructure is important. The
Right.
highway system and everything else. So electricity, the power grid, the sewer system, and all of that, municipal water, all of that is important for a civilization
And yeah,
to
and
thrive.
people don't realize. Like I said, they think because our technology that we have everything and other people didn't have anything. That we got most of our technology from history.
Yes,
We didn't have any idea how to move water, but the Romans figured it out, so we use their system today.
yes, a lot of they were brilliant with their aqueducts and that type of thing.
Yep.
So
They did
and
all that
other
without any
things,
kind of energy. People,
right?
they made waterways, and they were able to build. Now think about this: the Romans were able to build a constantly downhill slope so precise that the water never stopped and it
Yeah.
continued to flow for hundreds, if not thousands of miles. We couldn't do that. Well, we probably could, but it would take a lot of work
Well,
for us to
they
do
were
that.
certainly brilliant, and all of that work had a huge return on investment.
Yeah.
It's interesting that all hydroelectric dams have passages that point to stars. Because
Right.
anything that points up points to stars. Well,
Yeah.
that's a very small return on investment
Yeah. If
to
they're
buy.
just going over there to look up at a star that you can see from outside.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So very, very fair. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ascribe to that explanation or the biblical
The
Great
only time I
Pyramid
see that, and
story.
I think it's plausible, is like if you see a mound where they built a cave and then it has a ceremonial value and then you can see windows that are open for like the equinox or whatever. I
Yeah.
might buy that. You know what
Yeah,
I
I
mean?
might
Because we
buy
know that
that.
that was designed for that. It wasn't something where they were speculating and guessing that it was designed for that. Who would climb into a cave for no reason? You go in there and there's a whole setup that looks like, literally it looks like a church or something. It
Right.
looks like a
Yeah.
shrine and it's obvious, right? And then
Yeah.
you go, well, this portal pointed up at Venus and this one over here pointed at the equinox. And okay, I can get that. But when you look at a big structure like the pyramid, why would they build a structure just entirely so that you can go into a room and look up and go see that point of light? When you can be outside and look up and point and go that point of light.
Yeah. That's very, very well put. So
Right? Why would
I
you do that?
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, why would
Yeah.
you do
It's
that? That's like you said. That's a zero return on your investment. That's a bad
yeah,
investment.
because
Yeah.
our civilization could spend $40 billion and build a big structure that symbolically told people 10,000 years from now that we knew pi. I mean, we could do that. But the reason why we don't do it is because it's stupid.
Right. We can just put it down on a piece of paper or put it into
Yeah,
an
yeah,
archive or scratch it on a rock. Wait,
yeah,
that's what they do in the past too. Wait a minute,
yeah.
what?
But we haven't done that. But we'll spend $10 billion on a hydroelectric dam
Right.
that has a return on investment in perpetuity,
Right.
or the Northwest Power Grid, or the highway system.
Yeah.
Dwight D. Eisenhower created after the war the defense highway system that we use today, and it's huge return on investment. But we could symbolically tell people it only cost $40 billion that we knew pi, but it's just too stupid to do.
Well, and we really misinterpret so much stuff. There is, for instance, those holes in the ground that are, I don't even know what country they're in, but they're in this row of like 15 or 20 or 30 across, and they go across this landscape, and everybody speculates that there was some big giant robot that came down from space, and that it was taking samples of the Earth, and so it made this pattern.
Down in South
And
America.
then what's that?
It's down in South America.
Yeah. Okay, so then you have people that are down in South America, and they go, no, that's how we grow crops. They're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what? We dig a hole so that we can put water in it and keep the water in there, and we put the plant in there, and it doesn't blow away and get burnt up from the sun because it's down in this bowl. So that's where we plant carrots and corn, and people go, no. Had to be an alien. No, that's how we grow crops.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know that for a long time, and I was like, I wonder why those things are there. And it was actually in my Ancient Aliens group where some guy showed pictures. He's like, no, look, this is where we grow the crops. And he's showing
Oh, that's funny.
those holes
Well,
with plants in it. And it's like, that's
well,
what we do to grow crops here because we don't have natural protection or whatever. So we put the water in there and it acts like a bowl, and the water stays where you want it and focuses it on the plant. And the plant is just down deeper, so it's richer soil. And then the
right.
plant still has shelter because it's 6 feet deep. It has shelter, or 4 feet or whatever. It has shelter from the winds and stuff. And animals can't see it. They would have to smell it to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's naturally protected, and then that's where we know where they are, and they're in the bowls, and you go there, and they showed pictures of people doing exactly that. And I just went, okay, I believe that. That's very plausible. An alien contraption came down that was really big and went and dug up the earth and flew away. I'm like, what? No.
Well,
See,
Egyptology does a very similar thing. There's the artifact known as the Baghdad Battery,
Yep.
and it's a jar with a copper tube and
Right,
a
right.
iron center thing, and it actually works. It makes electricity.
It makes electricity. Yep.
Egyptologists say, "Oh no, it's a religious artifact. That's all it is."
When I was a kid, I remember I
That's
was in
sad.
the first or second, maybe third grade. The first time we took a couple of little steaks and stuck them in a potato and had
Yes.
some copper wrapped around them, right? And then took the little wire clamps, right? One here and one there, and took the little wire clamps and stuck it on something and ran a little teeny light bulb.
Yeah.
And then the teacher did it
It's
with an
amazing.
orange, and like they did with orange juice. They did that on the show in Ancient Aliens, where Giorgio took orange juice and put it in there with the copper, and then it started making electricity. Now you could run a watch. We did that too. We had a little watch, a little digital watch, and you'd do that, and it would turn on.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
people don't realize that the acid that is in some of these things, right, or the citric
Yes.
acid that's in many of
Mhm.
these things is conductive. That's what we use for batteries, people. Acid
Right.
in the water is conductive, and you charge it, and then it creates a voltage that we use for our cars to start, our flashlights. It's
Right.
the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
So certainly a lot of technological artifacts have been
Misinterpreted.
interpreted
Yeah.
by not just Egyptology but others. But
No, yeah, they put the wrong head on the
certainly,
wrong dinosaur forever. They thought the T-Rex head that we
oh
grew up
yeah,
with was not a
yeah,
T-Rex head, right?
yeah, the wrong head on. I think it was Brontosaurus, but
Right.
yeah,
It wasn't the
yeah,
Brontosaurus. They had
nothing
the wrong
wrong
head
with
on
that.
something. And I remember that.
But
And so the one that we grew up with doesn't belong on the one that is supposed to be there now. So
mhm.
yeah, we make mistakes, but the problem is that people don't want to admit them, right? Sometimes and they'll go, no, 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 this is the way
Oh
it is.
yeah, oh no, they don't want to admit it
Yeah.
when they wrote their book or their doctoral thesis on how extreme precision was accomplished using hand tools. But of
Right.
course, there's no demonstrations. No, they don't want to admit it.
Well, I've seen where
Science actually,
they've said, well, you can split a stone really easily by drilling holes and then using picks, and I've watched the guys do that, and
oh yeah,
I find it hard to believe because you can split a stone that way, but I've never seen them split a stone perfectly in line. First of
yeah,
all, and smooth. No, there's
no,
outcroppings where your hole was. It breaks in the center of where your hole
yeah,
was, and
yeah.
that outcropping
I,
is still there. And then even when it cracks, it doesn't always break
yeah,
straight.
it's not smooth.
It's not
You
smooth at
know,
all.
I
Yeah.
knew a guy who said, I got $50,000. I want to buy a component of the Great Pyramid, not an original, but one that was made authentically. All I
Right.
want is want to buy a casing stone.
Yeah.
And then, and then people just went ape crazy. Oh, well, they've done it or this, that, and the other. And it's like, can you show me a picture?
Yeah.
No, I can't show you a picture. It's just outrageous. It's like going to Napa and say, hey, I need a headlight for my car. And then they tell you a big story. I don't want a story. I want the
Right.
component, you know?
Right. Well, they do
So,
that with the flat Earth. They talk about this firmament, and I'm like, with the technology we have today, how come you guys can't get a picture of it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But Egyptology is what I call them is flat pyramiders
Right. Because
because
there's
they
they're
say that
flat pyramiders, right? I agree.
flat pyramiders. So
I
it's
agree. They're
funny,
like, we can't reproduce it, but you have to take my word for it. Wait,
right?
no, that's not
Yeah,
tangible. The way science works
no,
is
that's
that when
not
you create a
science.
thing, you have to be able to duplicate that thing more than 100
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, I live on the West Coast and we go up to Fort Clatsop where Lewis and Clark was.
Right.
And they say Lewis and Clark was able to tan hides, and there's a guy tanning hides. And then they say Lewis and Clark were able to make candles out of tallow. And then there's a guy over here making candles out of tallow.
So they
You
show
go to
you,
the
yeah.
Yeah, you go to the East Coast where there's Colonial Williamsburg, where the colonialists, and they
Yeah.
say colonialists were able to make this bowl out of copper. Then there's a coopersmith right there, and then they say, well, this is how they made a book, and then there's a bookbinding place, and then they
Right.
say, well, this is how we made clothes, and then they're making clothes with weaving it or the stuff from the sheep or whatever. You get
Right.
the idea, and then you get to Egyptology. Oh yeah, they made the casing stones just with hand tools. Boop, 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 boop. They did it all day long. That's what they did.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all they
okay,
did.
well,
Yeah, but no
yeah,
one's doing it
okay,
to show
well,
you that.
let me see one. Can you knock one out? Oh, our whole entire science, we've never done it. We can't do it. Can't do it. But that's how it was done. Well, what about moving the heaviest stones? Oh yeah, they're knuckle draggers. We just put the ropes over their shoulders and just moved up the ramp like this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And then
or they had
okay,
big pachyderms doing it, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they could
go,
walk up with all that grease on the ground and not fall and slip and
yeah.
fall and yeah.
We live in a society that has a lot of 70-ton payloads, like a locomotive or an Abrams A1 tank.
Right.
Put some ropes on that, drag them up a ramp, and that has shut me up. You know,
Right.
you wouldn't need water locks or anything. But
Right.
Egyptology doesn't engage in the scientific method.
Yeah.
Isn't that bizarre?
That is very bizarre to think about that. I mean, how are you going to try and prove a theory when you don't. Like you said, it's just a story, and you go, well, then prove it, and they go, well, here's my story of how they did it, and then they don't want to hear anything about technology, which is weird.
Oh
When
no.
you come up with stuff like that famous little aircraft that
Yeah.
the guys on History Channel have for the ancient aliens, where it flies. I saw
Yeah.
the video. I
Yeah.
saw them where they put it in there and it's aerodynamic. It would fly. Oh
Yeah.
no,
But oh
no,
no.
just a toy. Yeah, it was nothing. What? Wait a
Mm.
minute. What? It was
Either,
nothing.
e- yeah, either Egyptology is very wrong on their understanding of ancient Egypt, or the ancient Egypt civilization cannot be shown to have made even the components of the Great Pyramid.
Right.
So it's kind of a dichotomy you got going on there.
Hmm.
And I think if nothing else, Egyptology is wrong. And science has come and go. The science
Well, everything is
of
fluid. Things change when we learn things, and how we
oh,
learn
right.
things is that we do them, and then we go,
Mhm.
well, that didn't work. If
And
that didn't
yeah, and
work,
we learn
then we
things
move
and
on. We
think,
learn that. Then we go, well,
oh,
what did it do? If it didn't wasn't that, then what was it? So that's the only way that you can figure stuff out is you have to actually do it or attempt it.
most of the things when you learn something, you also learn that what they already had taught you is wrong.
Right.
So that's
Right.
the
So if you were
two.
taught, yeah, if you were taught that
They're tied to the
a
two things
wrong
are tied
method,
together.
yeah, if you're taught a
Like
wrong
the
method, you can't
Piltdown
duplicate it.
skull.
Right.
They
Say
had
that again.
the Piltdown skull.
Right.
The leading experts in anthropology. Oh, there it is. The missing link. It's right there.
Right.
And the leading experts couldn't even see the file marks that are on the Piltdown skull.
Right.
But then it doesn't matter because it's true for 40 years until all those guys that wrote their dissertations on the Piltdown skull, they had to die off.
They had to die
And
off.
then the next generation, the young anthropologists, well, the Piltdown skull, it's a forgery. But
Yeah.
nobody changed their minds.
Right.
Nobody changed their minds. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
So
People do that with a lot of stuff,
a
and,
lot of
and a lot
stuff.
of it has to do with money. It always has to do with money, like you said before.
A lot of it has to do with
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. If you look at it here in the United States, pardon me, here in the United States, we use wheat for everything, and wheat now we're realizing is not really good for us. It'll keep you
Yeah.
alive if you're starving to death, right? If you don't eat very much food at all, and then you have to have rice or wheat, it'll keep you alive, just like potatoes. You don't want to eat a lot of it, but if you are starving and that's your only source of food, then it keeps you alive and it's fine.
Right.
So then we come forward in time. Pardon me. People are moving now. They're coming across the plains to come out here to the West Coast, and the people, there's two routes, north or south. Well, most people try to go north because it's a lot easier to deal with the cold than the heat. But those
Right.
people who came south came through the southern desert of the United States. And when they did that, they met the Indians that lived out there on those plains, the Hopi and the Anasazi and the Cherokee and the who else was it? The Apache was especially in the Arizona, New Mexico, California area. And by the time they got to West Texas and New Mexico, they were starting to run out of their supplies. Can't go to the store and pick up more wheat, and the wheat doesn't grow there. So they didn't have anything. Well, guess what happened? A Native American showed them this plant that grows on two different trees. It's the mesquite tree and the hickory tree, and they both grow a bean pod that you can eat like a green bean when they're green and let them dry out, and then pick them off the tree or let them fall off the tree, and you can guess what? You can grind them into a powder, and it becomes just the same as our a flour. It's just made from the mesquite tree bean, and guess what? It's naturally gluten free. It's richer in vitamins, and it's sweet without having sugar in it. Sweeter than the bland flour we use. Do you think the whole industry in the United States would change? No, because they're already embedded. They got their money. They don't want to have any part of that, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't change when it was found. There's people that produce it today. I was actually going to, and I still might, invest in the companies that are producing it. It's popular in areas like California where health foods are popular, but they use it to pour in their drinks, their energy drinks. They're not making food out of it, but you can make everything that we make with flour out of that, and it's better for you, but they're not going to change the industry because of it, right? Because there's too much money back east. So
That's true.
why would they change their minds and say something about the pyramids when there's money in the people coming there, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They, and another thing, that's all true, but I mean, what are they trying to hide? I mean, anybody can understand that precision stone cutting cannot be accomplished by hand, but they are steadfast in that error, and I don't know how
Mhm.
that benefits them.
I don't
You
either.
know,
Changing it
yeah.
wouldn't hurt them. That's just like when people say with the flat Earth, or what's the other stuff, like whether or not we really went to the moon.
Oh yeah.
That they say flat Earth, that we never went to the moon. NASA's a bunch of lies, because, and I'm like, well, what would they gain?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But how does that benefit them to continue saying no, the Earth is round? How does that
Yeah.
benefit them if you can't prove it? How does that benefit them if they made that mistake? They just go, oh wow, we were wrong. We went up there and we saw. Why would they want to
Yeah.
say it's round if it were flat? When the first time they went up there, they realized it was flat. Why would they go, well, I don't like the idea that it's flat. Do you, Barney? How about we do this? We tell everybody it's round. I mean, why would they get that in their head?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what some guys in history said that back 100 years ago, 500 years, 1,000 years ago, that the planet had to be round. So when they got there, they just went, well, they said it was, and it's not. We're not going to change things. Why would they not go, guys, guess what we discovered?
I know. I know. It's just strange.
Yeah.
Some things just
So,
don't add
so I
up.
mean, it happens for some reason in history, and so the Egyptologists have clombed onto that, and they
Yeah.
won't change that tool,
Yeah.
in that method, because they, for some reason, they're afraid
Yeah.
that if you question that, maybe that people are going to question everything.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do know that people that look into their research techniques have caused Egyptology, as it is now, to be in crisis. I don't know anyone older than the eighth grade that's looked into it at all
Right.
that says that precision stone cutting was accomplished using hand tools.
Right.
No stonemason on Earth certainly can accomplish that, or even say that's how it was done. So
Right. I
I
mean,
don't know
even if you
how it
look at these
benefits them.
sculptors who make statues and stuff, even there, the precision of some of the faces are so precise that
Yeah,
people couldn't have carved that. We can't.
yeah,
I couldn't. Nobody can. Our
yeah.
computers today can barely do that.
Yeah, it's quite symmetrical, which is real
Yeah.
impressive. Christopher Dunn, has done a lot of research
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
but just the flat surfaces,
Yeah. That's the
some of
most
the
important thing. The flat surfaces.
yeah, because all machine shops have what they call a surface plate, and
Right.
it's usually got a towel over it or whatever. It's very precise,
Right.
and some of these flat surfaces are almost as precise as these surface plates. And it's just, but why would they need to say, their position? It's
Well, and the
simply
weird thing
no one can
is,
do it, but working people did it.
well,
You know,
the
wow.
weird thing is that even the big giant saw theory, which is very plausible, by the way, would cut
Hmm.
those things more at a perfect or more perfect angle, smoother than anything else, and they still won't really that they
Oh
don't like
no,
that one either.
no, no.
And there's actually some. I've seen some of the striations that would suggest
Yeah,
overcuts. I used to work
yeah.
in a frame shop, so I understand what that means.
Oh
When
yeah,
we're cutting mats, if you're doing it by hand and you're not having a machine do it, you really have to worry about having overcuts. So somebody has to be very precise in their job. Okay, so it's plausible. It can happen if if you got people who that's what they do. Stone cutters cut stone. Okay, masons mason. Right. So
yeah.
so that's what they do, and that means that that's their job. They looked at that stuff like a religion back then. So it wasn't just like a job today. And we today can do some of that stuff, like if we created a big giant saw like they had, and used diamond like they did, and embedded it, or the sand, and it just grinded like that, and you would cut that stuff very precise. Why don't we just say that they did that instead? Move
They
on.
can't. They can't say it. I know what using modern tools, we can do precision stone cutting. You can
Yeah.
tell by running your fingers across a granite countertop.
Right.
But they don't make granite countertops using hand tools.
Now the chisel,
I'm an
yeah.
Egyptologist.
Yeah.
Making precision stone cutting. I mean, it's just that's
Yeah.
why that science is in crisis right now. So It's just strange.
Well, and then and then I still can't wait. I'd love to go and see the new museum. I was watching them bringing everything in there, and
Oh
opening
yeah,
everything up. And there
yeah,
was like I was like a kid at Christmas,
yeah. We are going to that museum as well. Just
Nice.
our
On the
tour.
tour, right? On the
Yeah.
tour when you guys are going to see, that's
Yes,
got to be
our
cool.
tour to Egypt in February. So
Right.
you can find out about that on
Right.
thepump.org.
So yeah, for those of you who don't know, they have a new museum that they put together, and they then went and got everything they had, especially all the stuff from Tutankhamun, all of the artifacts and stuff and the treasures that they had hid away, because when they took stuff out on the road, it was only a little teeny tidbit. There was a lot more stuff they found, especially on that pharaoh. Who
Right.
was murdered, by the way. If you look into Egypt, most of the pharaohs were murdered. And the next one to come in office, it's crazy. It wasn't like they got voted out. Like they realized that Tutankhamun took a hammer to the back of his head, spiked
Yeah.
hammer to the back of his head, and his father before him was killed. So,
Yeah.
just saying, something going on over there, right? So,
Yeah. Crazy times.
yeah, but the stuff that they had, they took a lot of it, and then they packed a lot of it away, and it's been packed away so long. I don't think there's anybody alive who originally packed it. So for all the Egyptologists, when they were unpacking it, I watched that whole show they filmed, and I was like a kid at Christmas. I'm a nerd. I couldn't wait for them to unwrap the next item. What is it? What is it? What is it? Where's that go? Oh, that goes on the barge. That goes on the barge. you know. And they were doing the same thing. This is the other pole for the barge, and they were running over and. So I would love, now that they've reassembled everything, I got it in there to see it, and I would love to do that. So you guys, honestly, going on this tour that Stephen is part of putting together, is now more prevalent and a once in a lifetime opportunity, because of that museum alone,
Yes.
people prior to that in history have never seen the artifacts that you can see today. Never. So our generation is a generation that if you're going to do something once in your life, an Egyptian tour, that's like top of my list. I've gone to
Yes.
the Grand Canyon. I went to the Hoover Dam. We talked about some of those things that I've done and you've done. But going to Egypt, and you've done it, Stephen. So tell the people
Yeah.
the wonders. And you haven't seen the museum either, so you can't wait, right?
Oh, yeah, the new museum will be, world class and all that, with the huge statuary and other things. No statuaries associated with the Great Pyramid, but anyway,
Right, right.
all of these artifacts. So you can't beat it. But Egypt has been accommodating tourists since Herodotus in the 5th century BC. So they take care of you, and they treat you like gold. And it's they don't have oil there, but they do have tourists, and they do treat you
Yeah,
well.
their entire lives depend on tourism, really. Doesn't
Yes,
it? Yeah.
it does. And another thing, if I can say this, the rooms are fairly cheap. If you, of course, in the tour, it's all inclusive, but the meals are cheap and all of that. So
Yeah, it's not like America, guys.
yeah, it's not like America. No,
Yeah.
it's a whole different world.
That's part of what I wrote in my book. I'm gonna plug myself here real quick. In my
Good.
book, How to Get Out of Debt, Surviving the 21st Century, I literally tell you that you live in America. You really don't know. You don't know. You're not poor. You are as rich as you hear other people tell you you are. You just don't know that because you're America poor.
Right.
Okay? Because the truth is, and this is a true story. I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but why not? This is a true story. I mean, I'm the producer, right? And you and I are friends. We can do what we want. So we can talk about whatever
Yeah.
we want. So there's a
I'm
true story. This
interested.
guy was on a documentary, and he was talking about had corn crops, and he was somewhere, I think he was in the Philippines, and he had corn crops, and he was selling corn. He was growing corn. That was his business. He in 1 year he was able to have a business, run, and have a bunch of people work for him. He had like 20, 30 employees. He was able to take care of his family of 8. He had his parents and all of his kids, and he's putting his kids through college, the whole nines. And he said, and I stand to double the amount of money that I made this year. Next year, my business is going to double. And they said, really, what was your total profit for last year? He said $50 American.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guys, you guys out there think you're poor. When was the last time you spent $50? Probably the last time you walked down to the store, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
this guy for an entire year made $50, and that's how he said it. I made $50. $50 paid for an entire company to double in its size, to pay for a whole family of 8, putting kids through college and keeping 20 employees employed. And you're thinking about hiring another 20 for next year, so you can make $100.
Right. A lot of expats from the United States go to the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
and if you just get a Social Security check, you can have a live-in maid. You can have
Bruce
a
Cunningham
villa.
is wanting me to move. He lives down there in San Francisco in the Philippines, and I think he owns a bed and breakfast down there. He wants me to
Yeah.
come down there. He says, "You're on Social Security, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're rich down here."
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
like, "You're at least
It's
wealthy."
incomprehensible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, Leo, you need to move here." And then I had Ildy telling me the same thing in Egypt. She's like, "You're upper middle class in Egypt." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah,
Right.
you wouldn't be rich, but you would be
Right.
upper middle class. You'd have maids and the whole nines." And I was
Yes.
like, "Really?" So yeah, a couple years ago, she was trying to get me because she wanted to move there. It was before she met her husband, and she was like, "We could be roommates." And I was like, I was thinking about it. Right? I'm like, that'd not be a bad idea.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
guys, so everything like he's saying is so much cheaper there that you have no idea. It's so for
Yeah,
instance, he told me like a beer is like 15 cents or maybe a quarter in the Philippines. That's
Right.
like you walk in and get a beer in a bar these days, and it's like $5 to $7.
Right. Oh
Some
yeah.
places
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
A lot of people go to Vietnam too, to retire in Vietnam.
Yep.
So
I got
yeah.
two buddies of mine. One, he actually married a woman from there, but he goes every year. Prior to another buddy of mine that I've known literally since we were like 11, he goes there and has tailor-made suits made every year. He flies into the Philippines, gets measured, and gets like 6 or 7 tailor-made suits, and it costs him like $100.
Right.
Over here, they'd be $6,000 suits each.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing to stay on that subject, a lot of people will fly if they have to have a hip operation. They'll fly to India,
Right.
and the trip and the operation is like less than a third or even a quarter of what it would be if you had it done here. So you could go see. They call it medical tourism,
Right.
where people do that. So yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
get the
we're
hip
a
replaced,
captive.
then you see the sights and come home, and it costs you less than it would if you were staying in America to have it done.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of a captive audience. America is where you go down to Mexico to get your dental work, and then
Right.
you go to Canada. You go to Canada to get your pills.
Right.
What a country.
I did that. I actually did that. I know under Barack Obama it was illegal, and I think it still kind of is. I was diagnosed with COPD back in 2012 or 2014. Although now I test that I don't have it, and my lungs have regenerated. I'm the only case in history, and they won't admit it. So they will not. The doctors are like, "No, I'll just say you're in remission," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever you want to say." He's like, "But he made me a case study. He's writing a fucking dissertation about me. He'll probably get a
Wow.
Nobel Prize." Yeah. So I had to have this medication. The medical that I was on at the time, pardon me, they wouldn't cover it. They covered it, but the cost of my medication for 30 days would cost me out of pocket $757.
Yeah.
Okay. At the time, like now, I'm only making like $1,200 on Social Security, right? So imagine that, right? So
Yeah.
so my doctor said to me, what you need to do is go to Canada. So he gave me a website for online. You can order pills from Canada, and they bought them from India. Okay, so I went online and I looked it up, and the generic, which couldn't be sold here in America at that time, I could get the generic version. I could get a 90-day supply of the same pill for $100.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I had it mailed to Canada, and then from Canada to my house, and that's what I did until the patent ran out, and they were able to sell the generic here, and then I was able to buy the same thing from America for like $40.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, a lot of American medications are made in China and India anyway. So,
Yes.
But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
We supposedly have our free trade,
Yeah.
but in America, where we just
Big
take
pharma.
it up the rear end. It's just
Big
odd.
pharma. Yep.
Yeah. So with this with getting back to this water pump,
Right,
if
right. Yeah,
if, if
sorry,
people can,
this time we went off on a tangent, didn't we?
well,
Go ahead, buddy.
that was a tangent. That was a good one. But if people can be self-sufficient and build this own water pump on a smaller scale using
Right,
PVC pipe and polypropylene, you
right,
won't have to send a check in to pay for your electric bill every month. You know, it's just like people that do micro hydro or
right.
wind power.
See, and
You know,
that plays into
you have,
my second book that I've talked about, was just prepping slash survival for beginners, and all of that, being prepared, doing that stuff is efficient. And this is what Stephen was talking about before with
yes,
the return on your investment. If you can build something that costs you less money to build on your return, and it means that your return is going to pay for itself and then some, and
yes,
then basically you're getting free something, free water or free power or free, like he's saying just here. Why would you not do that? Even if it's something just huge like the pyramids, because people can't fathom the idea of why would they build something so large, because what if that fed 5 million people?
yeah,
It would be worth it. We would do that. Look what we did at the Hoover Dam. Like you were saying,
right,
these other dams, we have built giant monstrosities because the return that we're going to get, that it's going to pay for electricity and water and food and everything that's going to come from that, be it by pumping the water, by generating electricity,
electricity.
it's going to make life easier for all of us. Why wouldn't we do it?
Yeah, and we have done it. So we've done it, and so have ancient people, I think, when they built the Great Pyramid. So it's certainly fascinating. It's been interesting for me, discussing this stuff with people like yourself, and it's been a fun ride. You know,
Right.
instead of getting a lot of guys my age get a motorcycle and relive their childhood or whatever, but this
Right.
has been my
I've already done
life
that. I had
quest.
a motorcycle in my childhood. So
Yeah,
my
yeah,
father had me riding motorcycles by the time I
right.
was able to drive. We were on dirt bikes. And then I had a street bike by the time I was 18. So I've already gone through that midlife crisis, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's just it's quite
And
an
I
interesting
rode,
life
I went
quest.
on long trips. I rode from here, I started in the San Francisco Bay Area, drove all the way down to San Diego to see my sister, and then drove out. And that was when we went to the Hoover Dam, drove out to Vegas to the Hoover Dam and back, and then drove all the way up the coast on here in California, Oregon, Washington, into Canada, partied with
Yeah,
the Canadians for their Independence Day, came back for our Independence Day, into Idaho, went to Montana, Wyoming, went and saw the Old Faithful. We did that on motorcycles by the time I was 18.
oh man,
Right,
what
we
a
were out on the
wonderful.
road for a whole month, sleeping in KOA campgrounds with a tent. It was fun. So,
Oh, good
so guys, if
times.
you got a bucket list, Egypt should be on your bucket list. And if you're going to do that, then you want to look at the tour that Stephen was talking about, and you want to look at his documentaries before you get there, so that you know all the stuff that he knows about these pyramids and the stuff going on around there. And then you can go there and take the tour with him, and you could talk to him about stuff like I've been doing. You can talk to him about stuff while you're there looking around. You can go, Steven, hey, there he is. And you can talk to him
Yeah.
about, see, he'll be working, right? But I'm sure that at some points they're going to have Q&A sessions where they'll
Oh
be able to
yeah,
talk to you guys, right?
that's the type of work I'm going to be doing.
Right,
But
right.
jabbering away. But we can look at the joints,
Yep,
how they have a bonding agent between them,
yep,
and we can look at the precision stone cutting,
right,
and we can discuss issues. People, want to talk about different theories, or they want to gain understanding,
right.
and that's what I'll be there for, as well as Barbara Jean Lindsay,
Right.
and she will have her take on everything as well. So it's going to be fun, good food. We'll be cruising down the Nile, going to the new museum and the Sphinx, and pretty much everywhere else. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I would love to be able to get away to go out there and do that with you guys. That would be a lot of fun. You have no idea. I will do it one of these days. I promise. I will. I will have to, like I said, even if it's after I have to wait, until after Mom passes, if that, God forbid, if that's what I have to do, then I'll do that, and I'll still, hopefully, still be young enough, and I'll go and do it.
Yeah,
Which,
time and a
I'm
season
only
for everything.
52. I'm gonna be 53. I got another 50 years before I have to start worrying about being old.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, time and a season for everything. So
Right.
where I'm at, it was a whole 25 years of research, sitting around reading books
Right.
and compiling notes, and then writing my own book, starting a organization, and now I'm traveling to Egypt, back to Egypt. I've been there before,
Right.
so it's been a fun ride, that's for sure.
Oh, I know, and it's fun. You have to love what you do, right? I mean, if you're not a nerd and you don't love history to begin with, then none of this appeals to you really, unless you just want to go there to see the sights. But to truly, I think, to truly understand and get what you're seeing, you have to understand the history, like you
Hmm.
said. So you see that snapshot in time of current events thousands of years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true, and that's what we're trying to do. Put it all in perspective, both the religious and spiritual aspects, but also in some of the technical and technological issues that they had and were able to overcome. So it was a high civilization with quite a bit of prosperity, and to have that, you need huge amount of infrastructure.
Well, and those guys had so much gold, they had no idea what to do with it, to spend it. So they just had, I don't know where they got all that gold. It's crazy the amount of gold that the Egyptians had. It made California Gold Rush look like a speck on the amount of gold they had. That there was one king that wrote a letter to one of the pharaohs that said, "You guys must have gold in the rain that comes down from the sky. There's so much gold in Egypt that it'll never run out." And it's indicative of that when you see the stuff that like they buried Tutankhamun with. You're like, everything is gold. Isn't that
Yeah, they
crazy?
had a lot
Yeah,
of gold. Some glassware too was
yeah.
highly prized, but even
Especially
gold.
mica, right? Mica was
Yeah,
prized even in South America. Yeah,
yeah, gold fingertip covers.
right.
And the mask, which we will see, is burial
Crazy, right?
mask and everything. And
I would
that's
love to see that knife that was Tutankhamun's knife, the one that
yeah,
was
it's
made out of the meteor.
meteor. Yeah,
Yeah.
supposedly. Yeah,
Supposedly,
yeah.
I mean, we don't know. It's rare,
I
whatever
don't
it
know
is.
exactly, but
Yeah,
it's a beautiful knife.
yeah.
Really inlaid and everything. I've
I've
seen it
seen
right up
pictures,
close.
but I've never seen it in person. I'd love to see it in
Oh
person.
yeah,
Love to sit
yeah.
and look through it, even if it's behind glass. Just being in its presence to see it with my own
Oh
eyes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I actually saw the exhibit when it came to Seattle
Did you?
in the '70s, and they had
Nice.
his death mask and burial mask and
Yeah, yeah.
a number of other things, and it was amazing. My dad. This is before I was even into it. It was early '70s, and I was still in high school. My dad says, "Hey, I live in Southwestern Oregon." My dad just said, "Hey, they got that exhibit up there, King Tut stuff. You want to go see it?" Yeah. So we all got in the car, and drove up to Seattle, and you had to pick a number, so it wouldn't be so crowded. And you got to go down. It was a wonderful display.
Wow.
And so one of the reasons why they did that is the United States was trying to have influence with Europe, not Europe,
With the
Egypt,
Egypt, yeah.
because the Soviet Union was financing the High Aswan Dam, see, and
Ah,
they had
I.
their fingers. It was all strategic. So that display generated a lot of money for Egypt, and we had our fingers in the pie, if you will, and
Right.
so it was. And then, of course, I saw it again at the old museum now last time I was at Egypt,
Right,
all of
right.
that stuff. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
That is cool.
Amazing. Good
Crazy.
workmanship.
Crazy stuff. Okay, well, we're coming up on the 2 hour mark now. We got 6 minutes, and this is a hard break, right?
Uh,
I got everybody stacked up on the show. So if we don't break it exactly the right time or before it, then we push everybody else back. So once again, why don't you tell everybody your books, your website, your foundation, and then talk about the tour again, where they can go and find that information. Okay, give them all that information about your stuff.
okay, first I want everyone to know that I was in solidarity with you with the glasses.
Right?
So
Thank
we
you.
were kind of matching there. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Thank
that's
you for that.
that's important. But two books that I've written: How the Great Pyramid Was Assembled, and also Why the Great Pyramid Was Assembled. And I have two documentaries. The first one is Building the Great Pyramid with Water Locks and Barges. I don't have the other
The
one.
other
I don't
one to
have
hold
with
up.
me.
Yeah.
I don't have one to hold up, but it's the Great Pyramid water pump. As simple as that.
Nice.
So
And they
you
can
know,
find all those on Amazon, yeah, or
yeah,
at your
all on
foundation.
Amazon. and all the links are from our foundation's website at thepump.org.
Okay.
And don't forget to go to my YouTube channel, like
Right.
everybody
Like it,
has.
subscribe to it, hit the little bell.
Yeah, hit subscribe. And then also my Facebook page. I'm running out of room for friends or whatever that is. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, because they limit
And
that to
all
whatever it is, 5,000 or whatever it is.
5,000. I'm about to max it out. I'll have to, clean that out when the
Right.
time comes. But
Yeah,
all
just,
I
yeah.
ask, yeah, I know what you mean. All I ask is for people to become familiar with the direction of our research, and then consider the information they find out. So if people
Right.
can do that, and then of course the tour,
Yep.
which is in February. This I think it starts the second or the third, and we meet in Cairo and go from there. It's a lot of excitement, but also there's some relaxing aspects of it. So it's a
Yeah, if you
trip
guys
of
have
a
ever seen any
lifetime.
kind of pictures of the restaurants in the area, man,
Oh
it's
yeah,
relaxing.
yeah,
Trust me, it's a vacation.
everything. The
Yeah.
statue, those big
Beautiful.
statues of Mammon, and
Yep.
everything we're going to go see. So I don't think we're going to go to the High Aswan Dam. Now I would like that,
Right.
but
Right.
yeah, and then
Okay.
just
Well,
go to the pump.org
there you
to
go.
contact me, or send me an email if you have a question.
There you go. And guys, just remember that if you have any questions for Steven, you can either put them into the chat here, and I can contact him. Like I said, we'll do another show, a follow-up show,
Oh
where
yeah,
if we have enough questions, we'll do that, and we'll come on. You guys can come on live there. We'll go live on YouTube, and then you guys can ask questions there as well as him answering the questions from prior to. That's the way we're going to make up for not him not being able to go live. So we'll go live
yeah.
another time and make up for it. Okay. So, Stephen, thank you for being here, my friend. I'm happy to have you here on my third birthday bash on from noon until whenever on Friday here. So, I had you. You're the second speaker of the day, and so that's right. You're speaking before me.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Save the best for last.
No, no. Omar's got the headline. Omar's got the
Oh,
he's got the last. He's got the big stage. He gets 3 hours. Just about everybody
oh,
else does one. Everybody from you get two, Michael Feely gets two, and all the rest of us get one, and then Omar gets three. So you guys get the biggest chunk.
well,
So thank you
for
again, my friend.
thank you for
Yeah,
fighting the good fight. Thank you for spreading the information and for your
we
group
got to
on
get it out there.
Facebook.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
We got to get
so
it out there.
you're a warrior, a
That's
light
what we got to
warrior.
do. We got to do what we got to do. We got to stick together. We got to get the information out there to people and make it available. And because we'll be the little squeaky wheel. If we squeak loud enough, then somebody will give us some oil.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Thank you, guys. We'll have.
Thank
I'm
you.
not sure who's coming up next. I'll have to look at the thing. I'll get right back to you as soon as this ends. I'll be on live, and we'll get the next guest up here, and we'll start with them. All right. So thank you again, Stephen.
Thank you.